The Galactic Combat Symposium was many things: a peace summit, a weapons expo, a ceremonial dance of muscle and might. But above all, it was a show. Each species had brought its champions, polished and posturing in alloyed armor, muscle-augmented and genetically fine-tuned. The arena hummed beneath triple suns, carved into the face of a moon that had once belonged to no one and now belonged to diplomacy. The human arrived late. Not fashionably late, not chaotically late, just precisely, unsettlingly, silently late. No fanfare. No guards. No entourage. Just one man in worn Earth defense fatigues that looked like they hadn't seen a tailor since the Martian Accords. A few medals hung from his collar, tarnished and understated. He walked in sipping a steaming cup of something thick and black. Most assumed it was tar or punishment. Only humans drank that. He nodded politely to the greeting committee. The Bractor delegation, scaled, broad-shouldered, reeking of ammonia and arrogance, snorted laughter as he passed. One muttered something about sending a clerk to a blood duel. The translator chirped helpfully, but the human gave no sign of hearing. He simply took his assigned seat, row 5, center view, hands folded, coffee steaming. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched. "Is that it?" whispered a crystalline Solari ambassador, who refracted ambient light into a constant dazzling display. "That's the human general?" "Looks more like a janitor," quipped a Heshare commandant, clacking his mandibles in amusement. "Maybe Earth misunderstood the invite. We asked for their apex. They sent this." His name was never announced. His file was redacted in half. All anyone knew was that the humans called him General, and that Earth had sent no one else. The morning matches began with theatrical brutality. The Apex Warrior Academy, an institution carved from conquest and legacy, had bred the finest from every system. Hulking Vragni wrestled molten-blooded golems to the floor. The Vinari used telekinetic feints and fluid, acrobatic strikes. Each demonstration was followed by applause, analytics, and prideful commentary. The human sipped his coffee. The arena's noise dimmed subtly when the Bractor captain stepped forward, all 20 stone of him, boasting forearms and ceremonial blade wings protruding from his spine. "For the honor of my fathers," he roared, "I welcome all warriors to witness the legacy of blood." He moved like a glacier in heat, slow at first, then devastating. His opponent, a speed-focused Xyrian, dodged and jabbed, but the Bractor's size and ancestral rage prevailed. The match ended with the Xyrian in medical stasis and a smattering of cheers. The human clapped politely. Once, whispers passed between alien factions. The symposium had always been a ceremonial affair, an excuse to boast, bluff, and posture before fragile treaties were inked in shared ink. The human silence, however, had begun to stir something that felt uncomfortably like tension. Midway through the schedule, the Solari proposed an open sparring round for cultural exchange, they called it. A few low-tier warriors were invited up. It was meant to be humorous, even charming, to see how the newer recruits fared. The Bractor captain smirked and stepped forward again. Perhaps Earth would like to try. All heads turned. The human stood up. Not fast, not slow, just deliberate, like a shadow accepting sunlight. "I wasn't told there'd be audience participation," he said mildly. His voice was low, plain, deeply Earth. There was no translator lag. He spoke in galactic standard as if born into it. The crowd murmured. A few chuckled. "Are you qualified?" asked a Vinari noble, half-mocking. "I breathe," the general replied, setting down his cup. "Usually that's enough." He stepped down into the arena with the casual grace of someone who had done so thousands of times before. His boots were scuffed. His hands were bare. No armor. No enhancements. No weapons, the Bractor asked, for arms twitching with the excitement of a televised execution. "I brought some," the human said, tapping his temples. "And a few more somewhere under the wrinkles." Laughter erupted across the tiers. Several species laughed the way children laugh at haunted houses. They knew the joke, but didn't understand why their skin felt colder. An overseer, a floating orb of protocol and insurance, buzzed overhead. Terms of engagement: First blood or incapacitation. Fatal strikes prohibited. Begin when ready. The Bractor didn't wait. He launched forward with the speed of a stampede and the fury of legacy. His limbs blurred, blade wings unfolding with sonic speed, roaring ancestral chants in a war dialect older than some moons. The human tilted his head, blinked, and moved once. A single step, a pivot, a duck. The Bractor was on the ground. The arena went silent. The replay drones didn't understand. They looped the footage again, then again, at half speed, quarter speed, molecule speed. The analysis showed a pressure shift, barely perceptible. Then a single hand strike to a nerve cluster below the second spinal ridge. No wasted motion. No follow-through. The Bractor lay groaning, conscious but unwilling to move. The human looked down, politely. "You were right," he said. "You do honor your fathers." He stepped away. "But you lead with the wrong shoulder." Gasps spread like static. The human returned to his seat, picked up his coffee, and took a sip. "Still warm," he murmured. Across the tears, something broke. Not loudly, but cleanly. The Solari ambassador shifted. The Vinari scribes whispered rapidly. The insectoid Heshare commandant narrowed his 100 eyes. What was this? Who was this? The general crossed one leg over the other and tapped his finger along the rim of his cup. "I thought humans were pacified," muttered a diplomat. "No," said a Vinari scholar, young and curious. "They were archived." The crowd's buzz swelled as military factions convened privately, hushed arguments unfolding behind projection fields. Combat history scrolls flickered to life. Human war records, deleted, forgotten, or buried, began to resurface. And the man sat there, alone, sipping, watching, listening. "I believe," said a crystalline Solari captain with dawning dread, "we just invited a predator to the zoo." By evening, the Bractor had been carried out. The human never asked for a rematch. Just before lights dimmed for the day's conclusion, the protocol orb hovered beside him. Would General of Earth wish to present tomorrow's opening seminar on defensive technique? The man raised one brow. "If I must," he said, smiling softly. "But I do prefer offense." The orb blinked nervously. Acknowledged. The human leaned back in his seat and said to no one in particular, "They invited me to observe. I'm still deciding what I saw." And far above, in orbit cloaked against all scans, 10 Earth vessels waited quietly. Listening, watching, ready. "You can't be serious. That's a human." The words weren't meant to echo, but they did, across the marble-tiered viewing spires of the Apex Warrior Academy. Spoken by a Vragni tactician with 10 confirmed planetary conquests under his belt, the line carried weight. Not just skepticism, not just disdain, but growing confusion, edged with something few galactic warriors admitted feeling. Doubt. The human general, still unnamed, still unarmed, stood in the center of the open training floor beneath 3 suns. No armor. No implants. No ceremonial garb. Just Earth-standard fatigues and the faint scent of worn leather and roasted caffeine. In his left hand, he still held the same dented metal cup. "Perhaps," offered the young Vinari scholar, adjusting her translator lens, "he's not entirely organic." The Heshare commandant hissed sharply. "No, that's meat. All meat. The way he breathes, it's not synthetic." Around the chamber, whispers crackled like voltage. The Bractor warrior, still being carried off, had not just lost. He'd been dismantled. Gently, efficiently, with clinical precision that lacked ceremony or cruelty. It was insulting, in a way, how casual the human had been. A panel of elder instructors hovered into place. All species represented. All wearing diplomatic expressions twisted into unreadable concern. The lead Solari's crystalline face refracted sunlight as she spoke. "We request a formal clarification from Earth's representative regarding his combat status." The general looked up from his seat. "Clarification. Are you trained?" she asked delicately. The man gave it thought. "Not anymore," he said. "But I suppose some things stay in the blood." The phrase struck differently. A few species shifted uncomfortably, parsing it too literally. Another alien, an arctol with twin mouths and a nervous twitch, buzzed in. The bractor was our finest. That technique, was it some form of time loop augmentation? A quantum displacement? The human sipped. Nope. Just a basic redirect. He overcommit. Big shoulders do that. Silence again. Then, from the observation pit, someone barked. He didn't even blink. It was true. The combat replays confirmed it, frame by frame. His eyelids had remained still. Steady. Focused. As murmurs escalated, the young Vinari girl, Scholar Tier, accessed the archive tablets. Her screen glowed as she tapped through interspecies records. Earth wasn't expected to participate in combat programming. After the Pact of Halcyon, they were labeled containable. She frowned. Not peaceful. Containable. That's not better, said a Solari, their voice high with static. The general stood again. It was subtle, the shift from resting to rising. But every motion was packed, coiled, purposeful. The way one might lift a violin before a concerto, or unsheathe a blade in slow motion. If it helps, he said, walking toward the center again. We don't pick fights anymore. He stepped into the dueling circle. We just finished them. The crowd hushed as another challenger approached, a Vragni blade dancer with dual plasma axes humming at her hips. 7 feet tall, clad in obsidian combat, plating with adaptive shielding. She bowed stiffly. For science, she muttered. The general nodded. For curiosity. The duel began. She came at him like a meteor, fluid and fiery, her weapons whistling through the air, glowing arcs slicing through wind and dust. The general moved as if walking through morning fog. Calm. Measured. The first axe passed within a hair of his cheek. He didn't flinch. Then, 3 seconds in, the fight was over. She lay on her back, unharmed but pinned, her own weapon discarded 10 meters away. He stood beside her, hand gently resting on her shoulder, palm open. You favor your left side too much, he said softly. Injured in youth. She blinked. Yes. He helped her up. Applause didn't come immediately. Some were too stunned. Others too ashamed. A few didn't clap at all. Scholar Tier stared. He's reading them, she whispered. Like books. The Vinari nobility called for emergency review. The human declined the next 10 duels. Not out of arrogance, but out of courtesy. I think we've seen enough blood for one afternoon, he said, eyes twinkling. The phrase set off another round of hushed discussions. Soon, species representatives began accessing Earth's historical archives, public records, war logs, tactical training journals. Most of them were outdated, fragmented. But what they found was enough. Operation Rolling Thunder, the siege of Stalingrad, the burning of Atlanta, the Battle of the Somme, Vietnam, Thermopylae, Desert Storm, the Black Knife, revolts, Hiroshima. Every page flipped was a revelation and a warning. Earth had not just survived war. It had written poetry in its ashes. By sunset, even the bravest alien commanders had fallen silent. Their warriors returned to quarters without speaking. The bractor, bandaged and humbled, refused interviews. The Vragni blade dancer sat in private meditation. And the human? He spent the evening gardening. The academy kept a small biodome for atmospheric study. He wandered through it, studying the flora like an old farmer. Trimmed leaves, smelled a flower, even watered a few things. An instructor found him kneeling beside a stalk of Terran rosemary. General. He looked up, eyes patient. We're adjusting tomorrow's roster. Perhaps you'd be willing to speak at the tactical symposium instead of sparring again. He smiled gently. Words are harder. Harder. Can't hide in words the way you can behind fists. The instructor paused, not sure how to respond. You're all still watching the wrong thing, the general said, returning to the plant. And what's the right thing? He dusted soil off his hands. Ask yourself why we stopped. The instructor left, more rattled than he would ever admit. Later that night, Scholar Tier compiled her findings into a report titled The Human Doctrine of Disproportionate Response. She submitted it to her superior, who promptly archived it under Class 5 security level. The last note read, "Recommendation: do not provoke Earth silence. They only raise their voice when it's too late." By the time starlight stretched across the domes, the human had returned to his room. No guards. No surveillance. He looked out the window, one hand on the glass. Quiet. Then, without turning, he spoke. "You can come in now." From the corner, a ripple of light shimmered. A cloaked figure stepped forward. Human, dressed in recon black, armed to the teeth. "You're trending," the operative said, grinning. "I noticed. We've mapped 16 species reflex data. 12 showed weaknesses." "And the Vinari?" The operative hesitated. "Young one's curious. Might be useful. Want me to recruit?" "No," said the general. "Let her learn the hard way. Like we did." The operative nodded. "Command says Phase 2's ready. Want the code phrase?" The general closed his eyes, then opened them slowly. "Tomorrow," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "we teach them why Earth doesn't blink." And orbiting silently in the night, Earth's ships waited. No lights, no signals, just readiness. Because that's how humans started things. Quietly. The symposium's third day dawned with an unnatural calm. Artificially adjusted gravity, filtered sunlight through the arena dome, and curated birdsong piped in for ambience. Everything was precise, controlled, sanitized. But there was tension in the symmetry. The human hadn't fought again. Not because he was forbidden. Because he didn't ask. He simply observed, hands behind his back, chin tilted, sipping that same metal cup of dark earth coffee. He walked the halls like a ghost that hadn't realized it was dead. No swagger. No fanfare. Just silent, polite omnipresence. And wherever he walked, silence followed. "He's mapping us," whispered a Vragni tactician to his superior. "Psychologically, biologically, he watches too carefully." Across the atrium, the Heshare commandant stared from his perch, 8 spindly legs tucked under battle-worn armor, compound eyes unreadable. "He's polite," he said grimly. "That's the problem." Scholar Tyr was the only one still brave or foolish enough to speak with him. She approached slowly, data slate in hand, ears flicking with anxious curiosity. "General," she said, bowing in the Vinari fashion, "may I ask you something off record?" The general looked at her, then gestured to the seat beside him. "If it's about gardening, I'm more generous with answers." She smiled nervously. "Why do humans train so differently? The other species focus on harmony, form, control." He sipped. "We focus on outcome. But it's violent." "Violence isn't the disease," he said quietly. "It's the symptom. We're the fever, not the infection." She blinked, unsure how to respond. "On Earth," he continued, "we learned early that danger doesn't care about form. Danger improvises. So we learned to improvise better." Tyr tilted her head. "Is that why your style seems so unfinished? You fight like you're waiting for the other person to show you how they want to lose." The general chuckled. "That's a poetic way to put it. But your posture, it's not proud." "No," he agreed. "It's patient." Tyr hesitated. "Is that why you smile?" At this, the general looked at her longer than usual. A slow smile did form, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Smiling," he said, "is the most polite way to bare your teeth." That night, her report changed tone. Less clinical, more cautious. She marked a section, high-functioning threat signals, human non-aggression displays. It was flagged by her superior and quietly passed to multiple planetary defense networks. Elsewhere, in the symposium complex, the Solari delegation received a private communiqué. Their High Chancellor, illumined in a cathedral of light-refracted data, issued one order. Determine Earth's endgame. If you can't find it, assume you're already in it. Back in the arena, a demonstration was scheduled. Harmless. Allegedly. An ancient combat model, a relic from the Fourth Nova War, had been restored. 10 meters tall, hydraulic limbs, old-world AI. A curiosity for the audience. It was meant to be a show of interspecies history, what war once looked like. "Shall we invite the human to watch?" asked Abractor with a sneer. "Why not?" said a Heshare. "He seems fond of ruins." The general was escorted to the center box, alone, surrounded by cameras, with a full view of the machine as it rose from its stasis pit, clanking, groaning, gleaming in restored glory. "It's unarmed," the announcer assured. Then it moved, not toward the scripted path, toward the general. The crowd's laughter faltered. The machine's optics locked on, and the general stood. No panic, no posture shift. He didn't even raise a hand. The machine accelerated. Then, 2 meters from impact, it stopped, frozen, mid-lunge. The crowd gasped. A faint whine echoed through the stadium, and the machine collapsed, piece by piece, like a marionette with its string severed. Its chest cavity opened, revealing its core, vaporized. No one had seen the general move. No weapon had been drawn. No command had been issued. Just silence and stillness, and the smoking ruin of an ancient war machine. He turned to the nearest steward. "It was a good attempt," he said politely. "But if you're going to test me, use something that wasn't decommissioned before I hit puberty." The statement rippled through the symposium like a virus made of teeth. Backroom emergency sessions flared. Some accused Earth of sabotage. Others demanded explanation. The general remained calm. Tyr confronted him in the corridor. Her fur stood up despite herself. "You knew it would attack," she said. He nodded. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I did," he said. "I told them not to." She blinked. "What?" He gestured to a wall console. Playback activated. An old message, time-stamped before the demo. "To whom it may concern, that combat unit still has functional targeting. Disable or reprogram. General." The note had been ignored, dismissed. Tyr's voice cracked. "So you let it happen?" He met her gaze, expression unreadable. "I let them prove me right." She stepped back, shaking. "You're not here to observe, are you?" she whispered. "No," he said softly. "I'm here to be remembered." Word spread fast, faster than the cleaning crews could clear the wreckage. Across the arena, species with vast histories of war and expansion began reviewing their interactions with Earth. Small things stood out. Why Earth ships never revealed full armament specs. Why every diplomatic treaty they signed contained innocuous, confusing legal clauses no one ever noticed. Why Earth never asked for favors, but always repaid debts. Quickly, fully, like predators grooming goodwill. Tyr received a final message from her Academy sponsor. "Do not engage the human again. Their kindness is a form of fire, and they're smiling too much." That night, the general sat alone on the outer viewing deck, facing the stars. The sky shimmered with satellites and cloaked vessels pretending to be shadows. He spoke into a private comm. "They're almost ready." A voice responded. "Should we deploy?" "Not yet," he said. "Let them squirm. It'll make them honest." He paused. "Tomorrow I'll give them a gift." "What kind?" He smiled faintly. "Perspective. And, in orbit, the Earth fleet adjusted formation. Still silent. Still waiting. Because the polite ones always smile before the fire." The symposium's final day began with applause, but it was thinner than before, tighter, more rehearsed. The cheers had a rhythm that spoke of obligation, not celebration. Something cold had seeped into the ceremonial blood of the Apex Warrior Academy. By now, no one underestimated the human. They feared him, not for what he'd done, but for what he hadn't. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't threatened. He hadn't raised his voice even once. And yet whole species were already rewriting defense doctrines because of him. He walked the halls like a man who'd already seen the end of the war. Scholar Tyr hadn't spoken to him in 12 hours. Not since the machine incident. She had spent the night in the archive room, surrounded by flickering screens and recovered footage. Her fur flattened, her mind clawing for patterns that might explain the truth. And the truth was worse than any lie. Earth hadn't come to participate. Earth had come to assess. And they'd already decided who would burn first. Inside the arena, the day's final event was titled Unity in Evolution. A symbolic match, with teams composed of multiple species, working together to demonstrate the potential of intergalactic harmony through combat drills. On paper, it was a diplomatic finale. In practice, it was bait. The general sat in the upper balcony, hands folded. He didn't watch the arena. He watched the crowd. The way ambassadors shifted in their seats. The way commanders leaned toward exits. The way translators hesitated before speaking. No one was thinking about drills anymore. They were thinking about survival. A floating announcer orb hovered center field. We would now request Earth's representative to deliver a final demonstration, if willing. The arena hushed. The general stood. No one dared cheer. He descended the steps alone, his boots striking stone like echoes through a tomb. When he reached the circle, he looked up, not at the warriors, but at the cameras, at the broadcast beams that carried his image to 7 systems. "I wasn't planning to speak today," he said, "but I think you deserve clarity." The arena held its breath. "You think this was a symposium," he continued. "It wasn't. It was a filter." He looked around slowly, his voice still calm, still polite. Earth wanted to see which species held power, who postured, who panicked, who watched, who listened. In the viewing box, Tyr's chest tightened. "And we've listened," he said. "We've heard every whisper, every calculation, every planned negotiation you intended to trap us in. We saw the bribes, the alignments, the lie beneath the handshake." He stepped closer to the center. "And so Earth has responded in kind." The arena's holographic sky flickered, then failed, and above, in naked daylight, orbiting ships revealed themselves. 10 vessels in perfect formation, sleek and black, built not for intimidation, but annihilation. Each bore no markings, no lights, just the Earth emblem, a circle fractured at the center. Across the planet, alarms triggered. Emergency frequencies screamed. The general's voice cut through them like a blade. "We do not start wars," he said. "We finish predictions." From every broadcast beacon, his image spread into embassies, war rooms, moon colonies, and black market stations. His tone never shifted. "You thought we came to learn. We came to choose targets." A Vragni warlord stood, roaring. "You threaten us with a fleet?" The general didn't turn. "No. I threaten you with preparation." Behind him, a live feed began to play. Earth's intelligence network, dissecting every species' weakness with surgical elegance. Vragni neuroresonance disruptors. Solari refraction overloads. Bractor bone fracture harmonics. A list too detailed to be guesswork. "These are not blueprints for war," the general said. "They're insurance claims, filed in advance." The arena devolved into chaos. Diplomats shouted. Warriors drew weapons. The apex instructors screamed for security protocols. The general remained still. "You sent your finest," he said. "You watched them fall. You wondered how." He raised one hand, not as a threat, but like a professor inviting a final answer. "Because Earth learned a long time ago, the best time to win is before the enemy knows there's a fight." A plasma shot fired from the shadows. Panic, desperation. The general sidestepped it, calm as gravity. And from orbit, Earth's ships responded. Not with weapons, with silence. And silence, in this case, meant planetary grid blackouts. All lights died. Communications died. AI systems blinked off. The planet dropped into pre-digital stillness. No lasers, no shields, no escape routes. The general's voice rang out, the only sound left. "We've mapped every frequency, every pulse, every signature." This wasn't a demonstration. This was a warning. Tyr stood in the box above, trembling, not with hatred, with clarity. This was what Earth had become. Not monsters, not conquerors, not brutes, but quiet, calculating ghosts that smiled while loading the match into the powder barrel. The general turned to leave the circle. "We'll restore your systems, one by one, if you behave." An old Bractor general growled, half choking. "Why not destroy us now?" The general paused, then smiled. "Because extinction is noisy, and we're trying to keep the galaxy quiet." He stepped out of the circle. The lights flickered back on. Ships in orbit vanished again. cloaked in the black they preferred. The symposium was over. In the empty arena, a new kind of silence lingered. Not peace, not fear, but the silence of a room still echoing with the truth. Earth had smiled, and now everyone finally understood what it meant.